Hello everyone! In this video, I'm doing an in-depth review of the Languo Acrylic Markers 240 set. If you're interested in getting into acrylic markers at all, you should watch this video because it can help to decide if acrylic markers are for you, if you're ready for them, or if this is the set that you should invest in. Let's get started. Lately, I've been enjoying using acrylic markers on my coloring and art. Their opacity makes them a useful tool for finessing a page, for correcting mistakes, and for finishing a page fairly quickly. I have a set of 80 markers from a brand called Emmy, as well as some Sharpie acrylic markers. The Sharpie acrylic markers are very vibrant with juicy ink flow. My husband gifted these to me last Christmas, and I didn't know how much I would enjoy them. At first, I used them to color mandalas, but as you can see, the large brush size makes it difficult to stay within the lines. I have tried diluting them with water and using them like watercolors, but in general, this technique is something I don't advise as it doesn't really look good. So because of the limited color palette with the Sharpie set, I wasn't able to use them a lot. When I got the Enemy set, I was able to enjoy more color choices, and the pages that I could color with them just expanded. I could create gradients and color blends with more colors. The Sharpie and the Enemy sets are primary colors. The Enemy set is just primary colors spread out into shades. I highly recommend the Enemy set if you're looking for a premium feeling, high-quality acrylic marker. I especially love the case because it's easy to find the markers and also easy to put them back. The slim case can fit anywhere without taking up too much space. These Enemy markers are what I used in all the pages that I showed earlier. However, I find that some colors are still more vibrant in the Sharpie set. The Languo acrylic markers are produced by Hangzhou Languo Stationery Gifts & Co., a company that, according to their LinkedIn profile, specializes in designing and manufacturing creative stationery and gifts for over 8 years. The Languo acrylic markers are packaged in a sturdy, cream-colored cloth bag with double zippers. Inside, each marker is neatly organized with a plastic organizer. The entire case is shrink-wrapped when you get it from the box. When you open the case, the pens are also shrink-wrapped in the bag so they aren't jostled around during shipping. The case is padded and features a handle on the side for easy carrying. It also comes with a shoulder strap. The swatch sheet is at the back of the removable label. This set includes 10 replacement nibs, which is a great bonus. Now let's talk about the pens. The pens are sleek, white pens labeled Acrylic Painter Marker. They remind me of pens from other brands, so they're very generic. They're slimmer than the other acrylic markers that I've shown before, and they have a light and comfortable feel. These are advertised as soft nibs with small brush tips at 1 to 5 millimeters. Regular acrylic markers brush size are 5 millimeters. While the instructions say to shake before use, these don't need shaking and have very good ink flow. The caps display the color codes matching the bottom of each pen. I like the attention to detail with the color around the cap, which allows you to see the color when the pens are laid on their side. However, the colors on the cap don't match the actual ink. This is a common problem for many China-made art supplies, so swatching is definitely a must. Speaking of colors, let's dive into the swatches. The primary reason that I chose the 240 set is the variety of colors. For a while, I enjoyed using the Enemy set until I realized that I needed more in-between shades and darker colors. The Languo set features a wealth of beiges, grays, and pastel colors, as well as those colorful blacks that some colorists are raving about. I did consider the Guangna acrylic markers, but when comparing the color charts, Guangna offers standard bright colors, while Languo has more nuanced shades with plenty of in-between tones that aren't commonly found. When I first opened this set, the pens were arranged randomly. I spent many hours of labor organizing the colors. They're very confusing. I think I reorganized this about 3 times. I've arranged them by color groups, and I ended up with this chart that shows the actual swatch colors. The table is also according to how the pens are physically organized to help me locate and put them back easily. If you're interested, this color chart and arrangement sheet will be available for download on my Ko-fi store. Now let's get these pens in action with a coloring demo. Starting with Cozy Vibes from Cocoayo, I picked a page with very simple, large shapes. After deciding on my color palette, I carefully selected the pens that I wanted to use. My color palette is a gradient of very light blue to pink. I thought I had all the colors that I would need for a smooth gradient, but I was wrong. I found that I still needed a few colors to achieve a good transition between these light colors. This is where I wish acrylic markers had a blender pen. I realized that the paper changes the color, so the color chart that I was using wasn't accurate when I applied the pen to the page. Instead of preparing a separate swatch sheet, I took the lazy route, applying the marker directly to the page to see the result. So this caused me to have 3 or 4 layers of paint on one area, ending in a gooey mess. I tried to blend with a brush to see if that helped. It doesn't work when the paint is thinned out with water. It works better with just a damp brush. On copy paper, once dried, they leave a rough texture, and if you're working with very thin paper, it can peel when you run the pen over it several times. But on thicker paper like this Random House paper, there's no peeling and no bleed through. The slimmer brush is useful in staying within the lines. I found that the brush is actually quite firm. There is no pooling of ink on laydown either. As I colored, I kept the pens I used on the table, and soon I had so many pens out, and I had forgotten which ones I used for blending. Again, this could have been solved with a proper swatch sheet, and I got a little better on the second coloring page. I was delighted to use all pale colors on the page. The effect is calming, which is what I was going for. When you put all the light colors against a white page, they're actually not that light. There were gaps in my blending, so to disguise the harshness, I attempted pointillism, something I often see in alcohol marker coloring but have never tried myself. Maybe the dots shouldn't be on the entire picture. Anyway, I couldn't help myself and I added a background. And then I added clouds and used the technique of blending out with my finger, which worked really well. And then before I knew it, I was covering the black lines as well. And here's how it turned out. What do you think? Check out all the markers that I used just for that easy, simple page. Now the painful part is having to put them all back. Ugh.
1 hour later.
For my second test, I wanted to paint on watercolor paper. This is actually more of a sketch pad, but it works. This is a free coloring page from Dover, an autumn scene with a cat catching falling leaves. I lightened the line art, then printed it on thin cheap sketchbook paper. As you can see, I already attempted to color it with watercolor, but I didn't like what I did. So instead of tossing the page, I wondered if I could rescue it using acrylic markers. And this time, I will paint the whole picture with only acrylic markers. So the test is, would I be able to complete coloring this entire complicated page with only this set of markers? I faced the same swatching dilemma as before, but it was much easier and quicker than with the cozy vibes. Off camera, I added leaves to the tree, but changed my mind and covered them with acrylic markers. Even after laying down several layers, you can still see the colors underneath the light marker. When acrylic markers can't do the trick, there's only one rescue option: gouache. So I started with a few layers of white gouache mixed with blue-gray. Once that dried, I painted the leaves again until I was satisfied with the shapes and the density. Now, since I already had the gouache out, I painted more of the picture with gouache out of habit. And then I remembered I'm supposed to test the markers. So I already failed on using only the acrylic markers on this page, but it's because I made a mistake and I needed to correct it. So I don't know if that counts. I took artistic license to add trees and shrubs, and I used gouache for this because the brush of the acrylic markers wouldn't have been able to achieve such thin lines. Now I added highlights with markers again. And then I corrected the cat's eye, which looked creepy before. And I also added more highlights to the cat. On most of this picture, I applied the marker directly on the paper, and when it came to highlights, I added paint areas to highlight, then blended out with my finger. Mostly, I use very pale yellow and white for highlights. And just a tip, on sketchbook paper that has lots of tooth, the blending out with a finger doesn't work because of the tooth of the paper. But once you have several layers of markers, you can easily do the finger blending on the smoothened surface. Now here's the final result. Can you tell which parts were done in watercolor, which were done in gouache, and which were done in acrylic markers? These ended up as a mixed media, which I didn't intend, but I think all three mediums blended together. As a bonus, I made this drawing of a white flower to see if I can use these markers for botanicals. I was surprised that the lightest colors on this set are actually very dark compared to the white of the paper. So, yes, these are my lightest shades. Can you believe that? So, I would not use these markers as main coloring supply for botanicals, but on top of colored pencils or watercolor to add shading or to darken the shadows or to add saturation. The conclusion to this video is that acrylic markers are a whole different breed of art supplies, in my opinion. They are supposed to be opaque and vibrant. They can be hard to control if you are not used to it, but you can definitely get a graphic effect where you don't expect smooth blends, but rather the illusion of a gradient with light and dark colors and everything in between sitting next to each other. I would recommend them for beginners. You have to have an understanding of a little bit of painting and planning beforehand, but they are very easy to use. And if you are looking for acrylic markers to try for yourself, then I recommend this brand and this set. They are great quality, not very opaque, but these are not as expensive as Poscas. The smaller nibs are excellent for fine details. The colors in the 240 set are great. You can color animals, scenes, botanicals, and the muted colors are shades that you won't find in any other brand. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for sticking with me, and thanks for joining me on this creative journey. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What techniques did you find most helpful in my demonstration of these acrylic markers? Have you gotten yourself acrylic markers? Do you like them? Are you planning on getting them? Drop your experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more tips and creative projects, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so that you don't miss any future updates. Your support means the world to me. Until next time, happy coloring and keep experimenting. Bye!